Hey guys, welcome back to my channel Decipher Sniper. This is the second part of Colton's documentary. If you haven't watched the first part, link is in the description below. Colton crash-landed the aircraft and ran into the woods. The local family reported seeing a suspicious person in the woods near their home, behaving in an unusual manner. The police responded promptly, conducting a thorough search. Among his possessions were a bag containing about $20,000 in cash and a camera filled with selfies of Colton. Despite the intense search efforts by the police, FBI, and special forces, Colton managed to evade capture once again. On another occasion, Colton succeeded in stealing another plane for the fifth time. This time, he headed to another island located in Washington state. Fortunately, the landing went smoothly and the plane remained intact. After a few more thefts in the area, Colton decided to lay low for several months, sensing that the hunt for him was intensifying. Some of his fans began speculating that he had either drowned or died, as it was unlike him to remain quiet for such a long period. However, Colton re-emerged, leaving a large footprint behind. At a harbor, Colton stole a boat and traveled to another island, Lopez Island, where he once again stole a boat, returning to his original island, Camano Island. However, the residents there despised him. They organized meetings, armed themselves, and conducted night patrols, forming search groups in an effort to catch him. Airplane owners even stationed themselves by their planes overnight. Despite this, Colton had no intention of staying on the island. As soon as he arrived, he stole a car and left the island for a different city. During one of his travels, he passed by an animal shelter and left an envelope containing $100 along with a note that read, "I passed by and had some extra cash. Please use it for animal care." The note was signed by Colton, the barefoot bandit, without any effort to conceal his identity. Afterward, Colton decided to expand his exploits beyond Washington state. He began moving from one state to another, stealing cars as he went and using them until they ran out of gas. Along his journey, he broke into several airports, searching for a suitable airplane. The authorities had no clue where he was as he traveled thousands of kilometers across America. After crossing 9 states and covering over 3,200 kilometers, stealing 11 cars in the process, he eventually arrived at an airport in Bloomington, Indiana, where the airplane he desired was located. Colton camped in the trees near the airport, observing from a distance and waiting for the right moment to make his move. When the opportunity came, he emerged from his hiding spot, boarded the plane, and took off. This flight would be Colton's last, as he flew south to the Bahamas. Upon his arrival, locals noticed a plane circling the same area 4 or 5 times before landing, despite the absence of an airport. Colton executed the landing on flat, muddy ground successfully. He immediately headed for the forest after disembarking from the plane. Shortly after, the police arrived, inspected the aircraft, and discovered its American origin. They quickly notified the American authorities, who confirmed Colton had reached the Bahamas. The news spread through various media outlets. Without wasting time, Colton resumed his routine of stealing. He burglarized a store and a restaurant, stealing cash, food, and supplies before retreating into the forest to enjoy his freedom. He spent his time swimming at the beach and exploring idyllic spots as though he were on vacation. Colton eventually stole a car and headed to a major city on the island, where he kept an eye on the harbor. He noticed a boat owner leaving his vessel unattended. Colton followed him to his car, where he saw the man leave the boat key inside. Seizing the opportunity, Colton broke into the car, took the key, and quickly made his way to the harbor. He boarded the boat, started the engine, and sailed off. Using this boat, Colton traveled to another Bahamian island, Eleuthera. There, he hid for about a week, avoiding detection as his image and name were widely circulated on news outlets. He occasionally saw his face on television screens in restaurants or on wanted posters. To evade recognition, he disguised himself and altered his appearance. Feeling weary of the situation, he stole yet another boat and sailed it back to the harbor. As he neared the harbor, 2 young men stood on the pier, watching him. Colton began maneuvering the boat, showing off his skills as though putting on a performance for them. The 2 men were puzzled, trying to figure out what this bold young man was doing. Eventually, Colton brought the boat closer and introduced himself, saying, "You guys don't know me. I'm Colton, the barefoot bandit." One of the men immediately recognized him and knew about the $10,000 reward for capturing him, but he pretended not to know Colton, hoping to lure him in for an arrest. Colton saw through the act and said, "I know you recognize me. Don't play dumb. Call the police and let them come for me. I want to have some fun with them." Colton's audacity left a lasting impression on the two men. One of the men discreetly called a friend with a boat, hoping to catch Colton. Sensing the plan, Colton sped off in his boat. Shortly after, the friend arrived with a group and they began to pursue Colton. As they closed in, one of them pulled out a gun and aimed it at Colton, but Colton skillfully maneuvered the boat, creating waves that splashed over them and blinded their driver. Colton quickly distanced himself from the group and headed toward a nearby harbor. The harbor was located behind a large house, guarded by a security officer who witnessed the chase from a distance. He watched in disbelief as Colton's boat sped towards the dock. The security guard signaled for Colton to slow down, but Colt crashed the boat into the dock, jumped off, and ran toward the house, gasping for breath. He told the guard that the group was trying to kill him before disappearing into the bushes. The security guard chased Colton but lost him in the dense foliage surrounding the house. He quickly called the local police chief, reporting that he had just seen the boy from the news hiding in the garden. The police forces surrounded the area. But Colton remained hidden. He stealthily slipped into the water while they searched above, swimming quietly to a boat. At that moment, a crowd of people, including the police, boat owners, and residents, were standing at the harbor when they noticed a boat moving silently with its lights dimmed. Realizing it was Colton, they quickly alerted the police, but Colton accelerated and escaped. The police boats weren't available, so some locals offered their boats to help with the chase. The police set off in pursuit, but Colton had gained a significant lead. As he kept looking back to check how close they were, he didn't notice a sandbar ahead and ran his boat aground. Despite his efforts to free it, the boat got stuck and the police closed in on him. At that moment, Colton raised a gun to his head, threatening to shoot himself. The police pleaded with him to put down the weapon, but he shouted, "It's impossible to go back." While still trying to free the boat with his other hand, he managed to turn the engine to full power and miraculously dislodged the boat from the sand. Just as the boat started moving, the police fired at the engine, disabling it. Colton dropped his gun, placed his hands on his head, and surrendered, shouting, "I surrender. I surrender." The police instructed him to keep his hands raised, and after confirming that the boat couldn't move, they arrested him. After 2.5 years on the run, Colton was finally apprehended. When they brought him back to the harbor, a crowd gathered, capturing the moment on camera, but Colton tried to hide his face. The Bahamian police had succeeded where the FBI, Special Forces, and American authorities had failed. Colton was extradited to the U.S. for trial. Although the Bahamian authorities fined him only $300 for entering the country illegally, the American charges were much more severe. Colton faced 67 charges across 3 countries, the US, Canada, and the Bahamas, with a potential sentence of over 30 years. However, Colton was fortunate to have one of the best defense attorneys, John Henry Brown, who had represented notorious figures like serial killer Ted Bundy. Brown advised Colton to plead guilty to all charges but emphasized his difficult childhood and upbringing during the trial. The judge showed some leniency, sentencing Colton to 7 years, but he only served 5 before being released on parole. Upon his release in 2016, Colton began working as an assistant in Brown's office. In interviews, Colton expressed regret for his past actions and a desire to distance himself from the person he once was. He now speaks about rebuilding and aims to share his experiences with others through lectures. Colton may have lived one of the most reckless and wild teenage years, stealing houses, cars, boats, and planes, robbing banks, and escaping from prison, but in the end, the court showed him sympathy, giving him a chance at redemption. If you like the story, please like the video so that it helps the algorithm and suggests more people to watch it. Please do subscribe to the channel as I will be making more such interesting real-life stories on this channel. Thank you.